Psalm 107, verses 8 through 9. What a beautiful psalm that is. We should always give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love. And finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things, which is found in Philippians 4, verse 8. I will praise you, O Lord, with all my heart. Psalm 9, verse 1. And we need to do that. Give praise unto the Lord, for he is good. I was so blessed to have such a wonderful mother for so many years. She's now gone to be with the Lord, and this Thanksgiving is going to be hard because of that. But I remember she always had her faith, which kept her going her entire life. When she was born, she wasn't expected to live. They actually put her in a shoebox. She was so small. But the Lord had a purpose for her life, and she fulfilled that purpose. When she was in grade school, some of her classmates and her were out riding horses. And sometimes you get bullies in the group, and many of you might be bullied or know of a bully, and we really need to speak up and defend those that are being bullied, because it is very, very difficult for people who have to go through that. For example, my mother then was bucked from that horse, and back in those days, ladies didn't wear pants. They wore dresses. And so when she was bucked off the horse, she was bucked onto a gravel road, which was very hard. And for the rest of the summer, she said it just hurt like crazy when she went to the bathroom because of that. Plus, she ended up with scoliosis. We need to remember that if we don't speak up when somebody's being bullied, that could cause a lifelong disability for that person that's being bullied, and that was the case in her case. She had to live with that for the rest of her life, and she went through so many challenges, but she always kept a positive attitude. She was always praising God, regardless of the circumstances, and I learned so much from her from that. Even when I was born, she had a hard time because she actually knew that she was going to have a difficult time having me, but she decided that she wanted to still have the child, and which was me. And she lost all her hair when she was pregnant with me. And the day that I was born, she asked my father to help her because she was very sick. And he went off to work and told her just to go to the doctor. Well, it wasn't that simple. Her water broke and she started bleeding. And we could have died then and there. But my mother looked to the Lord, prayed to God, and he gave her the strength to crawl to the phone and call my grandfather, her father, from a board meeting. He was in a county board meeting. And they did get us to the hospital. I was born cesarean, so I made it through, but my mother was basically sent home to die because there was nothing more they could do for her. She had lost too much blood. But the Lord still had more for her to do, and she was a fighter. And so she went home with my grandmother and grandfather, and my father did not want to be burdened with a sick wife, and I had colic, so I was a crying baby and kind of hyper. I was rocking a lot, and I actually rocked my crib to pieces, which was, I'm sure that my poor grandmother had enough to deal with because she took care of my mother and she took care of me. And she was fairly, elderly at that time too. She wasn't too young because my mother was 32 when I was born. And so it's a miracle. It really is a miracle that my mother survived and that my grandmother did such an amazing job. She too, my grandmother, always looked to the Lord for her strength. And that's where we all found our strength, was in God. And anyway, my mother then survived, and she was ill for over a year. She regained her strength finally, and we ended up staying with my grandma and grandpa because basically my father kind of wanted his life, and they were not officially separated. So basically, there was no legal child support or anything like that, but my mother still managed to make it through. And I remember there was a woman in the town that was very cruel. I answered the phone once and she was swearing. She basically would call and bawl my mother out for raising a child by herself, because in the 60s that just wasn't done. And she did an amazing job. She took jobs that she could take when she could, and we made it through, and we learned to just survive. And the Lord always provided. That's the thing. We just finished with her foundation that I started, the June Lenny Lacey Foundation. We started today with handing out Thanksgiving baskets. And it's such a blessing to see the joy in people's faces when they receive that, because we know that many of those people are going through the same struggles that my mother and I faced when I was younger. And it's such a joy to get something like that, just get us something good to eat for Thanksgiving, and maybe a little plus things in there, some gloves and scarf and some mittens and things that you might need with winter coming on, especially in Minnesota. That's where we are located. So I thank all those volunteers who came out and helped with that distribution today. And we appreciate them so much. And we appreciate those people who are donating to the foundation so that we can do that. The whole purpose of the foundation that I started in her name was to help those vulnerable adults and children, the elderly, disabled, and our veterans. So if you would like to get involved, we would love to have you. We actually are doing a virtual walk and roll. It's through the end of December, and you can go on the website, which is JuneLennyLaceyFoundation.com, and scroll to the GoFundMe. Donate any amount, $1, $10, anything, and be part of the virtual walk and roll, and be part of giving joy to these people that are so grateful and so thankful for their Thanksgiving gifts, for their Christmas gifts. And we just want to thank everyone that would get involved with that. And when you do, and you do donate for the virtual walk and roll, we will send you a beautiful certificate of appreciation to show our appreciation to you for your involvement and for reaching out to help those in need. And if you can't always do things like that and get involved through that, you can always just pick a few things up yourself. One of the things that I picked up, and you don't have to spend a lot of money in order to give joy to people. Burger King right now is doing this little booklet. It's actually is only $1, and it gives you 2 ice cream cones, 2 French fries, and 2 frozen drinks, which I find out it's actually wonderful to give to homeless veterans or people on the street that are needing a place to eat. Unfortunately, now in Minnesota, they have closed restaurants, so much of the time it would be kind of comforting to them to know that they could go in and have some fries and a frozen drink and warm up and come inside there and do that. But right now in Minnesota, they can go through the drive-through and walk up inside the door. They can order and take out, but unfortunately in Minnesota right now, you can't actually go in a restaurant and sit and eat, which you could last week, but because of the increasing cases for the next 4 weeks, that's not a possibility, which is really difficult for people that are homeless because they need that place to go in. Like the library was a wonderful place that they could go in and warm up. Some would even ride the bus all night just to stay warm. And there is shelters, but sometimes they fill up, and because of, which is seems kind of silly, but because of fire rules, they're only allowed a certain capacity. And so if you don't make it there at a certain time, you're basically not allowed to come in because of the fire marshal rules. And so I know when I volunteer, I found that very hard to believe, especially when it's 30 degrees below outside, which we haven't had yet, thank goodness. But in past years, I've just found that hard to kind of fathom that they would rather have that person go outside and in the cold, and because of the fire laws that they can't be inside. And I guess you have to have a breaking point, but there's so many more nowadays with the economy the way it is than there was even a few years ago. And not everybody can afford to go south for the winter where it's nice and warm. So anything like that is helpful. If you have a Dollar Tree by you, I know they sell gloves there. They sell scarves and hats, and they're only $1. And it's nice to just hand that to somebody on the street. I know my mother used to do that all the time. She also would knit and crochet and sew, and she would make mittens and scarves and gloves, and I've tried to do that, but mine aren't quite as good as the ones that she used to make. But we need to reach out and help others, and being grateful ourselves for all our many blessings, we need to share those blessings with others. And that's part of why we are Christians, because of our love for one another. That's one of the ways that we show that we're Christians. That's one of the things that my mother always taught me, which when I was getting bullied, I found it kind of hard to understand, but I I was taught by my mother to do unto others as I would have them do unto me. So I wouldn't fight back. And like I said, that's all good and well, but sometimes we need to speak up and defend those that are being bullied, because that's just not right. And again, if you have the opportunity to go into the Dollar Tree, buy some gloves, hats, and maybe just stop at Burger King and get if they have any of those books left for $1, you're giving to two good causes in the process. You're basically helping with, by buying this book, it helps their BK Scholars. It's a scholarship program that they have through Burger King. And then you're also being able to get basically certificates that you can give out for ice cream cones and French fries and frozen drinks, which is just amazing that that they can do this. And I know different places do that. I think Wendy's, they have a program for adoption, and if you donate $2 before Christmas, I don't know if they're going to do it this year, but they have for many, many years. They have a little key tag that they give you, and when you come in and order something there, you can get a free little Junior Frosty with that key tag. So you pay $2, it goes to help adoption, and then for the rest of the year, you get Junior Frosties when you go and order something at Wendy's. So many places have so many programs that you can support. And not only are you supporting their program, but if you purchase the key tag, you can give that to a homeless person that could use that to go into the restaurant in a Wendy's. And if there's a Wendy's nearby them, and warm up and get their Frosty and maybe a hamburger or something when they're there. So it's just it's a great program. There's so many things out there that we can do. And I know so many people say, well, I just can't do anything right now because of the economy. I don't dare give money because I'm afraid that, what if I don't have money in 2 months from now, if I don't have a job? But there's little things like that, and it doesn't cost so much. I know when I was growing up, like I said, my mother and I, we made it through, and the Lord will always provide. In the Bible, it says that he knows the numbers on your head, how many hairs you have. That's just amazing to think that each single person, and he has the numbers of your hairs on your head counted. It's just amazing that the Lord can care that much about each one of us individually. And so, again, anything you can do to help, and we'd love to have you join us with our foundation and our virtual walk and roll, which is through the end of December 31st. And we're hoping that we can get some wonderful gifts and some food for vulnerable adults and children, the elderly, disabled, and our veterans. They're so appreciative, and we appreciate them too. So thank you so very much for reaching out and helping. We appreciate that. I just wanted to share one other very important thing that I have found in my walk with the Lord, and that is too that sometimes when we are discouraged, we have a tendency maybe not to turn to the Lord, but our strength is in the Lord, and we can always turn to His Word. I know towards the end, when my mother, as you probably heard from a previous week when I was talking about how she was medically kidnapped and put into a fraudulent guardianship, which forced her to go 210 miles away to a negligent nursing home that wouldn't even allow her to have a phone. She was taken prisoner. Now, I was extremely discouraged, but she tried to keep her hopes high. And she even said, Jesus loves me. Even when she was going through all that, I could not understand how she could have that strength. Because she was being tortured, basically. They would not even allow her to sit on a toilet. They wouldn't let her sit on a commode to go to the bathroom. She was forced to use a bedpan for months. And as you know, she ended up within 3 weeks, and she was actually put there from the hospital where she was discharged on a clean bill of health. And within less than 3 weeks, she had pneumonia, a staph infection, septic blood, urinary tract infection, and also a temperature of 102 plus bed sores. Never had bed sores in her life. She was black and blue. I'm very concerned, to say the least, with people that are in nursing homes. Now, this was before COVID-19 even started, and she was isolated before that because her fraudulent guardianship refused to allow her to go outside the door, refused to let people see her, and it was very hard. But they did have to take her to the hospital when she had the pneumonia, staph infection, septic blood, UTI, bed sores, and temperature of 102. So they took her to a hospital, and she was treated at the hospital with 4 different IV antibiotics. Now, like I said, remember, she was a fighter, and she always was a fighter. And she fought, and she recovered. So she was taken in on a Monday and released on a Thursday. And I found her at a nursing home that was within a mile of that hospital. But they forced her, this fraudulent guardianship forced her to go 80 miles back, sitting in a wheelchair after getting off of 4 IV antibiotics, to this negligent nursing home. When she got back there, I basically said I would not allow that. And when I said that, I was basically escorted from the hospital because it was basically what they wanted. They didn't want anybody to be her advocate. I called for the adult protection to help because what they were doing to her, but they would not. They decided not to investigate. And anyway, when she got back there, after fighting all that and surviving, and she was doing actually pretty good at the hospital. She was sitting up and smiling and eating, and she was sitting on a toilet. They let her go to the bathroom, which was when you're not allowed to go to the bathroom for weeks, and then being allowed to go to the bathroom. that was just a miracle for her. She was so happy. And then being forced to go back to the same place again, and she started going downhill. So the nursing home doctor then put her on hospice, and well, the rest is history. Unfortunately, hospice through the Affordable Care Act was given $11.5 billion to go from being Good Samaritan to basically the Grim Reaper. So basically, what they did was instead of giving her probiotics and prebiotics after getting off of 4 IV antibiotics, and that's what she should have had, they refused to give her the prebiotics and probiotics. Instead, they gave her oxycodone and morphine, which was killing her. On the oxycodone, she couldn't breathe, she couldn't swallow, she had seizures, terrible chest pains and stomach pains, extreme constipation. Wasn't able to go to the bathroom for weeks. And the hospice nurse refused to use an enema. It was a nightmare, just a nightmare. And nobody should have to go through that. But I was threatened with arrest if I did anything to help her, if I tried to even take her outside the door or try to take her to the hospital, because I was told that basically when you're on hospice, you're not allowed to go to the hospital. And there was no reason for her to be on hospice because she didn't have a terminal illness. What she had was congestive heart failure. And people live with that every day. It's not terminal. So what they were doing was just unbelievable. And now, too, we need to pray for the people that are in nursing homes and in seclusion. That's why through the foundation, we've been trying to bring things like toilet paper and food and necessities to people that are shut in their homes that are elderly, because they're not able to get out and they need those things. So again, we so appreciate when you can help us and help us with our virtual walk and roll. Basically, you can walk and roll of course if you're in a wheelchair, but it's just we're hoping maybe that a fourth of a mile or whatever you're capable of doing within your maybe house or apartment building, or if they allow you to go to the mall, you can go in the hallways in the mall or outside if it's warm enough where you're at. Now, you don't have to be just in Minnesota to do this virtual walk and roll. We're hoping that people worldwide will get involved in this ministry and the foundation and reach out to help these people, because I was not aware that this was even happening. And especially in America, you would not think that something like this would be going on, where they could just basically take over. Like I said, I was power of attorney, but I wasn't legal guardian. So if you are caring for someone, make sure you get legal guardianship, because that's how they go over your head. They try to get a guardian to do what they want to do. And in her case, they wanted to put her in a nursing home, put her so she'd be DNR, do not resuscitate. And even in the end, in the very end, the last day, the hospice nurse said that I don't think she'll last much longer. And I said, what? And she took her pulse and she said it was so low. And I said, we got to get her to the hospital. And she said, no, just let her sleep. I don't think that's right. So, but then she stopped breathing. So I called 911. And so the ambulance came out. And that was great. They came out. They then resuscitated her. But they called down to the emergency room. And the emergency room doctor said, sorry, but her pulse is too weak to bring her in. So they left. And that was the end. So they let her die again, which I could not believe how anybody could sleep, or have a conscience and sleep at night doing something like that. But that's what happened. And it's a nightmare that I have to live over and over again. And I just know that the Lord was watching over her. But to go through that, the struggle she had to go through in her life, it's just unbelievable. But like I said, she kept her faith. And oh, that I could have a faith like that, because I do think we're going to have challenges in the future. And we need to look to the Lord. So before we close, I just want to close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Now until we meet again, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you his peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a blessed Thanksgiving.